And faith. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 13th, 2018 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my honor to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room. If you haven't already picked one up, please do so, and you can follow along with tonight's proceedings. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to the items that are on tonight's agenda, as well as a segment under item 5 that is reserved for public comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda. When we get to item 5, any members of the audience who would like to ask a question or make a comment, I'll invite you up to the podium. Please let us know who you are, and we'll welcome hearing from you at that time. The team manager has handed us a lineup change. We are moving the manager's report from item 10 up to item 3. So after we get through our minutes, we're going to address that item there, even before public comments. With that being said, it is our proud tradition to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So I would like to ask everyone to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for joining us in that. I would now like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Earl?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. It brings us to item 3, which pertains to minutes of council meeting minutes. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are our minutes from our regular council meeting on March 6, 2018. If there are no changes, corrections, comments, or concerns, I will ask for a motion to approve, please.
Mayor Tully, I move that we approve the council minutes from March 6th as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. As mentioned in the lineup change I announced a little while ago, we are going to move up item 10, which is the manager's report, which pertains to information regarding implementation of the downtown regulatory framework. I have a feeling that there are some folks here who are very interested in this item tonight, so we're going to move it up and address it right now before we get to public comments, because I think that will help to hear the presentation before we get to the comments.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. Tonight, we wanted to provide information to the council about how we plan to implement the downtown regulatory framework, which was approved by this council just a few weeks ago. Tonight, we're really not looking for any votes or any formal action, but just general village council concurrence on how we plan to implement this and these action steps. And here to present the action steps we plan to take is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. As Manager Fieldman noted this evening here, we're talking about the implementation of the downtown regulatory framework. The plan in front of you tonight would comport with about 85 to 90% of the framework that Manager Fieldman noted was approved by the Village Council in January of this year. The goal is to complete the implementation of the framework by the fall of 2018. Staff has laid out a 4-step process to follow through with the implementation of the regulatory framework. So step 1 is tonight is an implementation overview and direction. Again, as Manager Fieldman noted, looking for concurrence on the plan to move forward this way. There's no proposed rezonings or text amendments that are being discussed tonight. The second step would be a zoning ordinance text amendment, which would go through the typical text amendment process with hearings before the Planning Commission and Village Council. Those text amendments, in essence, would then create a downtown core district through the zoning ordinance, amend the height in the downtown transition area, and amend the land use table. In addition, there are some other items in the zoning ordinance that pertain to the downtown core that we would have to address as well, and those will be addressed at that point as well. Following step 2 and going through that process with the Planning Commission and Village Council again, then we would move to rezone certain properties to a downtown core, a DC district, or a downtown transition DT district. Again, following the standard procedures with the public hearings, with the Planning Commission and back through the Village Council again for approval. And step 4 finally would be to update the downtown design guidelines and public participation process. So as outlined in your packet, this is a general schedule of what we're looking to do and how we believe we can accomplish these 4 tasks by fall of 2018, starting with the text amendments, moving to the rezonings, and then the amendments of the downtown design guidelines and public participation process. So you can see multiple steps here moving through the process as well. In the packet on Friday, which was posted, was this proposed downtown zoning map, which identified how we would comport with about 85 to 90% of the framework that was approved in January. You can see here in blue in the center by Curtis and Main Street, the downtown core district, which was noted in the regulatory framework. Upon further review and discussion, the couple of areas here circled in green were identified as changing those to downtown transition to match what the framework had said. Those are the southwest corner of Washington Rogers and the northeast corner of Maple and Washington. So the revised map that was posted earlier today shows this as well. I know we mailed it out to the council members and to also some residents who reached out to us as well. So this would be the map moving forward. And so again, just to reiterate, anything that would be potentially contemplated as rezoning is outlined here in green. So everything else that's in red and brown and not outlined in green, there's no contemplated rezoning of those properties. So those properties, if they were to remain downtown business in red, or those properties in brown, that would be downtown transition. Again, the only contemplated rezonings are the ones outlined here in green, which are the downtown core, and then the southwest corner of Rogers and Washington, and then the northeast corner of Maple and Washington as well. As part of the overall plan, this is an excerpt from the packet. It shows the updated land use table, which is very similar and the same to what was approved in the framework here. So this would be something that would move forward to Planning Commission, showing potential changes to the land uses. You can see the DC in the left-hand column there, which would be a whole new zoning classification with their uses, and then any changes to the downtown business or downtown transition area. So in conclusion, as Manager Fieldman noted, we're looking for some council direction tonight on the plan to implement the downtown regulatory framework. If there's any questions that I can answer for you tonight, Mayor, or for those council members, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you, Stan. Appreciate you outlining what the implementation for the regulatory framework is, what it looks like, what we're talking about tonight, and that this is actually a process that involves a number of steps before it becomes, for lack of a better word, legally binding and effective, that we have to go through a number of steps. So what you're looking for tonight is basically consensus from the council to go forward with what we have described here.
Correct.
And take the steps necessary to get it implemented, which will require things to come back to the council for approval along the way.
Correct.
Questions on that from members of the council?
I have a question for staff. The original proposal we had this evening, which was circulated to council, I think 2 weeks ago, a little bit more than that, called for rezoning 73 parcels. And I understand it correctly, is that number was picked for administrative simplicity, the idea of getting this done so that we could get this finished in the fall, all wrapped up and completed, as opposed to doing the whole 171 parcels if we rezoned all of downtown with Edge 1 and Edge 2. Adding the additional 11 parcels, so we go from 73 to 84 parcels, do you think that'll significantly impact our ability to get it done by the fall?
No, I don't think so. In fact, those areas have been discussed by this council and the community several times over the last 18 months, so I think we have some pretty clear direction. So unless we have some unexpected testimony or turn of events, I think it falls right in line with the schedule.
Okay, so the plan will be to address all 84 parcels, both the blue and then the two new areas, keeping the same timetable to be finished by the fall of 18.
Yes, and that'll be step 3.
Okay, I think that's a great way to go. Thank you.
Just to underscore that, in our prior discussions, if you tackle all 171 parcels, there was some concern, I think, as you highlighted, Commissioner White, that it might hold up getting all of it done if we take on too much at once. And there was obviously some sense of urgency with respect to getting parts of this done. It's now been adjusted, but I still think the approach is to get these done because we want to get those done. There is a sense of urgency. There are a number of steps that still have to be taken, so understanding that there are steps that are going to be taken, the sooner we get going and implementing this, the sooner things actually change for the direction that has been established to become a reality. So I'm still in favor of that, but clearly we're still looking at the 171. The 171 are still out there, but we want to get this moving so we can actually make some progress.
Well, I think part of the key is that when you take DE1 and DE2 and compare it to DB, the differences are not very substantial. So we don't necessarily need DE1 and DED. And I think, though, just, this may go a little bit later, we might want a different name, the downtown business, downtown mixed use, or something like that, but we can talk about that later. That would be more descriptive. So I would say with the way that we're doing it now, we're getting past 85% completion. We'll be maybe close to 95% completion just by making the simple change.
Yes.
It's a really good idea.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree that this is very, very substantial progress here. I mean, when we undertook this particular process, we were looking to protect that historic core of the downtown of Downers Grove, and then take a look at different ways to keep additional large construction from taking place in certain areas. And I think we're accomplishing a very, very substantial portion of that. So I think this is a good move. I'm in full support, and I thank my colleagues for all of their work on it as well. Thanks, Mayor.
Sure. Substantial progress on a timely schedule.
Yes.
Other questions or comments from the council? Commissioner Barnett.
Thanks, Mayor. I concur with my colleagues on that. I just want to enter kind of for the record, and hopefully my colleagues will chime in too, though, that we're choosing a path forward here to try and make some progress in an expeditious way. That doesn't mean, in my mind, that the January version of this that had 87 additional properties are somehow no longer in our view.
I agree.
I think there's still issues that need to be addressed with addressing those other properties. We will make some progress. That's good. I just want us all to not forget about them.
Not forgotten. Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments? Okay, I suspect that some folks may want to ask questions or make comments about this item under general comments, but I'm going to ask that if anyone has any members of the public, any members of the audience have any questions or comments with respect to the subject of the manager's report, which is implementation of the regulatory framework that Mr. Popovich just laid out, I'd invite you to please come to the podium, and we'd welcome hearing from you now. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Mayor. My name is Vincent Barrett. I live at 4921 Highland Avenue, and I'm right around the corner from Washington and Rogers. I've lived in that neighborhood for 45 years. Prior to that, I lived in that neighborhood for 20 years, so I've been around for a long time. The question I do have for the council and for the group that's heading this up is the three properties at the southwest corner of Rogers and Washington. Why are those properties being identified as going from 36 feet to 70 feet? Those specific properties.
There are no properties getting an increase in the maximum height. All the maximum heights and anything that's touched are being decreased from 70 to 36. Decreased. 70 now, 36 proposed.
Excuse me, I didn't realize that. So the property there at the southwest corner of Washington and Rogers is now 70 feet,
Yes, sir.
and it's being reduced to 36 feet.
That's correct.
Okay. That answers a major question. Thank you. I have a related question to the density of properties being built. I've lived in this town long enough that I've seen the variances between the building and a property line just almost evaporate to where homes are being built, and we almost have gangways between beautiful homes that are being built in this town. They take up a lot of the property. The building that's being proposed, if a 3-story building were to be put on that piece of land, is going to take up all the drainage area there. I've also had the pleasure of being before this council before, heard talk about green space, and I hear the talk, and I experience the lack thereof, green space. What I do experience is that properties get developed probably 95% of their footprint. And you might see green space, when the grass is green, but it's nothing to absorb the runoff from a building that is basically impermeable surfaces. And I see that happening here. The reason I bring this up is because it's very close to where I live. Our neighborhood, Highland Avenue, Bryan, Rogers, Washington, Franklin, have been impacted by water for years. We had a huge flood there last May. We talked to representatives of the village engineering department, talked about the wastewater treatment or what wastewater drainage pipes. We were told there were, some dimension of pipes, but what we were told consistently is they're not adequate to handle heavy rains. Up on Bryan Place, probably in the last 10 years, there are beautiful homes being built. They're just lovely. And there are probably 8 to 10 homes from Franklin to Prairie Avenue. Okay. Nothing has been done. Nothing has been done for the stormwater sewer. Okay. The homes take up more footprint of the property. There's always the talk of green space, but that water keeps building year over year. When Washington Park was developed, another beautiful project by this community. That is just a lovely piece of land. However, our neighborhood was told that that park would help alleviate the water problems that we get every spring in this neighborhood. And then we were told subsequently last year, no, that was never said. That was never intended that way. Well, I plan to be a taxpayer in this community for a long time. But I also plan to speak up for my neighbors in my neighborhood. And when I hear of more construction in the village, and I'm not against it, but what I want to hear and what I want to see in actuality are some infrastructure changes to our wastewater sewer, our wastewater containment around neighborhoods. And mine is not the only neighborhood. In talking with the village for as long as we did as neighbors last spring, we learned a lot about different areas of the community. And it was a very forthright, honest exchange with the village, which I was appreciative of. But what I don't see is the action by this village to step up and say, we've got an issue. It's a great community. It continues to grow. People want to live here. There's development. There's a need to pay taxes. But there's also a need to support the infrastructure to support all this construction. So I'd like some comments from the council about how that is being considered in this plan, even if it's a 3-story building.
Well, first of all, always good to see you, Mr. Barrett.
Thanks.
It's been a while. Thank you for coming. Second of all, I'm glad that the clarification, which is one of the reasons why we moved this up, because there had been some questions similar to yours that we wanted to clarify the perception that height and density were being increased rather than decreased.
Okay.
So I'm glad we clarified that. On the related topic of stormwater, when is the next time that we're talking about the proposed stormwater regulations?
First Tuesday in April.
First Tuesday in April, I would encourage you to come back because we have been discussing for some time now and going to continue discussing substantially changed stormwater regulations with respect to new construction and major additions. And obviously with the kind of buildings you're talking about here in the downtown, they sometimes can be developed in a different way that they have their own level of requirements of stormwater management anyway, often including on-site detention, underground vaults, things like that. But it's an issue throughout the entire community, no question about it. We are blessed with a topography and a soil content here in Downers Grove that makes stormwater a big deal, and a very difficult challenge. We're not unique in that respect. Elmhurst has similar challenges, and we've been working with other communities because water doesn't respect political boundaries. Other communities as well as regional authorities like DuPage County Stormwater Management where possible to try to have more impactful solutions. But I would encourage you to come back because one of the things that we've been talking about is we've tried I was trying to come up with a different word. Less invasive solutions to try to improve stormwater management and tried, but they didn't work very well. Then now we're looking at much more restrictive stormwater requirements and how to implement those in the community. And so the short answer is we are actually working on some of the doing and not just the talking, but would very much encourage you to join us for those conversations because one thing we're finding is that conceptually everyone agrees, But then, like with this plan, once you start drilling down into particular parcels, it becomes a much more challenging and oftentimes elevated conversation. And so that's kind of where we're trying to go now. I would very much appreciate your input and thoughts on that process too.
Another thing I'd like you all to think about going home, in speaking with the village last year, and again, it was a great back and forth with the village engineers. I was appreciative of their input and their openness. When we were told we had to put a fence in our yard, replace a fence, and we were told that our fence had to be 6 inches off the surface of the lawn, 6 inches, because we were in a poor drainage area. Okay. Other neighbors have been told that they had to get permission to put a swing set in their backyard. And I'd like you to think about that when you're looking at putting a building wall to wall, border to border, of an impermeable surface. Right, I thank you.
Yeah, and fair point, although it does matter because, and I have no idea what the circumstances are of the swing set situation, so I apologize. But if something is being put in a localized poor drainage area, the rules are going to be different than a place that's not.
I understand.
And I just don't know the distinction. But your point's well taken. Thank you. Good to see you again. Other questions or comments from members of the audience on the implementation of the regulatory framework for the downtown? Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Jim Kruzanowski, 853 Maple Avenue, 26-year resident. I'm here with my wife and neighbors and friends. I want to express first our thanks to the mayor and the council for listening to us, our concerns, and reflecting those in the zoning map, at least the proposed zoning map as it stands now. And we will remain committed through this process over the next several months and better understand what role we play as residents, or what role we can play as residents going forward through all the myriad of committees and other things that are required to make this map happen. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all of you engaging. It's appreciated. Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience on the proposed downtown zoning map implementation? Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Wolf. I live at 4925 Highland Avenue. I've never met Vincent Barrett before. No. Kind of tagging off of what he was saying, regarding the local poor drainage area on the 4900 block of Highland and Bryan, we are quite aware of what the LPDA requirements are, the limitations, those sorts of things. The big concern that we have, being the bottom of this little bowl over here, is when something does go in, that water comes to our yard. And so, again, considering that southwest corner of Rogers and Washington, while it is not a local poor drainage area, it sits atop the creek and it drains into a local poor drainage area. And so if we can, I'm sure we will have quite the crowd here in April, but as we're considering some of this zoning, to maybe consider not just what that property sits on, but what it's next to.
Fair point. And the not to get too much into the stormwater conversation, but the objective of the far more restrictive stormwater regulations is to have no net impact on any adjacent properties from whatever the affected new construction or addition is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, Kathy Nybel, 5253 Blodgett. I came tonight because I just wanted to point out a few things to consider. My daughter's trying to open a business, and she's looking at the downtown, and you're expanding the downtown. I don't know how much, I can tell it's going to be really huge if you built everything that was up there. And it was very hard for her. The rents are high, the fees are high, and she shopped around to the western suburbs as much as she could. She wants to be in her hometown, but she's going to be in Clarendon Hills. So I don't know, I just think you should consider, there's an awful lot of empty storefronts on a lot of those streets. Do we really need more businesses to what, to just fill them up? I hate to see the houses going down for more businesses when they're not really full. I miss Mokel's Hardware. I miss Carlson's Paint Shop. I miss all those things. I hate that glass block. But I don't want more of that, and I hope you'll take that in consideration when you're thinking about that. That people move to Downers Grove because it's beautiful. I drove down Maple and I was in love with this town. And I know other people have the same feeling, and I hope that that will be something you'll consider when you look at your map.
Thank you, Ms. Nybo. I think we'll probably be touching upon many aspects of what you just said when we get to that fourth step with respect to the public participation in this whole process as well, in terms of, I think it has more of an aesthetic bent to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on this item from members of the public? Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Michael Maurer, 4918 Elm Street. And I am also here to thank the council for considering this very appropriate rezoning map here. Particularly of interest to me and many of my neighbors would be the southwest corner of Rogers and Washington. Your recommended rezoning of that is entirely consistent with numerous recommendations from this council over the last year, clearly consistent with the will of the community, and specifically consistent with the downtown transition zoning classification that you are proposing, as intended to provide a buffer between downtown and the established residential neighborhoods. I've walked through that intersection twice a day for 16 years. I know what the situation with traffic is now. I could not imagine the experience of walking through there, let alone the traffic, if a 70-foot building were allowed on that parcel. So I thank you. This is entirely appropriate, and it's appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and for being here. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I just also would like to reiterate what, by the way, Scott Roush, 826 Rogers. I'm directly impacted by that because it's within a stone's throw of my house. And again, I want to applaud. I just want to remind everybody that this is a long process and that, as you see, we are engaged as a neighborhood and we are going to be watching this very closely. To me, it's always been a traffic and safety issue. If you put a huge building on there, not that I think that the current owner would do that, but that's kind of what this is about, is not so much him and it's down the road. I think it greatly causes traffic concerns and safety concerns with that corner, and it frankly just can't support the added traffic from an infrastructure standpoint. So again, I applaud you guys for not flipping back and forth and sticking with it. I just want to go on the record as saying that this is a good move and a positive move, but we will be watching and making sure that it follows through. So again, thanks a lot and have a great evening.
Thank you. We're counting on it. Other questions or comments on this from members of the audience? Well, great. Well, thank you for everyone that came down and shared your views and reached out to us either here tonight or earlier by email or otherwise. I heard consensus from the council. I just want to make sure that there's no disagreement on that point.
I will have comments later.
On
whenever.
Oh, you mean on the process or on the proposed direction?
On the process and direction, based on public comments. So.
Anything you'd like to say now, Commissioner Waldeck, please?
Well, I can do it now. I didn't know if you were finishing up the...
I was finishing up. I was simply clarifying that staff had direction, but please go ahead.
Okay, well, you know, our downtown is a real gem and we do need to protect it. And we do know that if we don't do anything, we could wind up with some real unintended consequences. So I do support the hard work that the staff is putting in and the time frame that they've given us. I totally support that. I also had a concern that I talked with staff earlier about the changes that were made to the map due to the input from the public. Totally support that. But as we get into the process and we start getting into rezoning and challenging the zones. You know, usually it's the owner of the property who brings the rezoning question or whatever to the planning commission, winds up with us. I was concerned that in this case, the public neighbors actually question the zoning as it affects their property, and so if staff wouldn't mind explaining that there is a process whereby, as we get further into this, that neighbors can actually, is the proper word, appeal the zoning of neighboring properties.
That's correct, Commissioner Waldeck. In our zoning ordinance, there's a provision which explains how anybody who's got a concern about a zoning action can file a petition with the village council, and if there's enough signatures on that petition, an amount prescribed in our ordinance, I think 20% of the adjoining property owners, then it would force a supermajority vote of the council on any of these rezonings. These would be village-initiated rezonings, not owner-initiated rezonings. So obviously, we're working towards a consensus of not just property owners, but the neighbors, as that is the intent of this plan.
Thank you. So I just wanted to get that out there so that as we proceed through the process, that the neighbors still have a way to, not just provide emails and input, but there is a process they can go through to really affect the zoning. So anyway, I totally support the timetable and the map as presented. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we have consensus.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. We'll keep you updated and engaged as we go through that process. And for now, that ends our manager's report.
All right, very good. That may be the earliest we've ever gotten the manager's report.
Yes.
All right, we'll go back to the agenda in order. And again, thanks for everyone who came. We're going to move on then to item 4, which is reserved for a presentation, a quarterly presentation, which is given by the leadership of the Economic Development Corporation of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll introduce Mr. Michael Casso. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Michael Casso, I'm President and CEO of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, located at 5159 Mokel in downtown Downers Grove. Now we're looking for the clicker.
I don't have it this time.
I would like to open the report by talking about some sales tax data. And last Friday, we received the December 2017 numbers. Just before I go to December, I usually present a quarterly report based on the state of Illinois' breakdown by quarter of each category. Those are usually released at the same time that the monthly report comes out. They just haven't released them yet. So to help correct that problem, we're going to move our presentation to the third Tuesday of the month, giving the state of Illinois one additional week to get the data to us on time. But to December, the home rule sales tax between December 2016 and December 2017 showed a 4.41% increase year over year. And the municipal sales tax, again, comparing 2017 to December 2016, showed a 4.5% increase. We have the year-end numbers for the village sales tax and home rule tax. The home rule sales tax, and we receive, by the way, our information the same place that the village receives theirs, which is the Illinois Department of Revenue numbers. The home rule sales tax was down 0.76% year over year, 2017 versus 2016. Municipal sales tax was down 1.11%, 2017 over the previous year. There you see the raw numbers. The municipal sales tax trade area trends. We not only track how Downers Grove is doing, but how those municipalities in our trade area are doing. And those municipalities were identified, you may recall, in the AECOM report that was done about a year and a half ago. So you see Downers Grove listed first. In In 2016 over 2015, we were down 1.89%. And again, as I just mentioned earlier, 2017 versus 2016, we were down 1.11%, so a slight improvement. Bolingbrook saw a slight decline, about 0.5% from the 2016 to 2017. Darien saw an increase. Lisle saw a decrease. Lombard saw a decrease. Oakbrook saw a significant decrease. They had a 6% increase in 2016 over 15, and then this past year they went down to about 4.5% in the red. Westmont saw an increase, a nice increase in terms of the one year over the other, and Woodbridge was down. They were down 1.27%, 2016 over 15, and this past year they were down about 4%. So overall, the trade area is generally down, and some municipalities are showing a bit of an increase, and some are not. But the overall is that generally the trade area is down slightly from where it was the previous year. Okay, let me talk about some current projects. Vequity Real Estate continues construction at their commercial development at the northwest corner of Ogden and Main. If you drive by, you can see that they're making really good progress. And their plan is to turn over the 6 units to the tenants in the spring, so that the tenants can then begin their own build-out. That's 4 fast casual sit-down restaurants, and there's 2 other commercial users. Ashley Furniture tells me that they're doing quite well. They've been open since Black Friday, and again, I think the creation of a furniture corridor on the south side of Butterfield, I think has helped. They're all helping each other. Someone knows they can drive to that corridor, and they can go and compare prices, compare different furniture styles. Mission Barbecue, since the last time I presented, has opened, and you just got to look at their parking lot to know how well they're doing. And I'm going to be there tomorrow for lunch, so I will know firsthand, but they're doing quite well. Outback Steakhouse is going to be scheduled to open on the 19th of this month. They're going to have their ribbon cutting, the 19th of April, I'm sorry. And again, that should bring more more diners to Downers Grove. One of the things that I'll hand out is we just completed our latest dining guide, and restaurants are going to continue to have much more of an importance for us than they have perhaps in the past. And one reason for that is that unlike a lot of the other retail sectors, people are still going out to eat. Lincoln continues to work on their dealership at 240 Ogden. Downers Grove Market, that's the name of the center that Caputo's used to be in. So, as you may know, the plan for that shopping center owner, IRC, was to subdivide the Caputo space. And so the 2 tenants will be Hobby Lobby and Aldi. I have spoken to several of the other tenants in that center who believe that those 2 anchors will help drive more traffic to Downers Grove Market. And Aldi is now in for permit. 2150 Ogden, that is the address of the former Packy Web location at the corner of Finley and Ogden, and we are actively working with the property owner and their broker on potential users for that site. In a couple of office projects I wanted to mention, United Healthcare completed their regional offices that they moved to Corridors 2. One of the reasons that is significant is not only are they the largest healthcare provider in the United States and taking a significant portion of the building, almost 100,000 square feet, but also that now pretty much brings that building, Corridors 2, to full occupancy. The other one is NEC Display Solutions, a world premier company, global firm, and they're moving their corporate headquarters. They're in the process of moving their corporate headquarters to Esplanade at Locust Point. Meadowbrook Shopping Center. The council has approved the revised plans calling for the Walgreens, and I can tell you that I think once ground is broken on that project, we will start to see more interest in that center. Walgreens will be a driver of traffic to Meadowbrook, and it should give us an opportunity to attract more tenants and perhaps some other tenants might not ordinarily have been able to get at that center. So I look forward to that. The Grove Shopping Center. We continue to spend a lot of time working on potential redevelopment of that center. It's an extremely complicated and slow process because it involves so many different owners. There is the ownership group that controls about 60% of the inline space. They're based out of Schaumburg. I'm meeting with them Thursday morning to begin the process with them. They are relatively new to the scene. Begin the process with them to see what we can do in terms of a redevelopment of the Grove. It's by no means something that will happen right away, but it's worth pursuing. Rexnord, which held the groundbreaking ceremony in September, that project is moving right along. They are on time and doing well. And I will tell you that the number of inquiries that we've gotten for the Ellsworth Business Park is substantially higher than it's been since I've been here. And it's because Rexnord has brought a lot of, in effect, publicity, PR for us nationwide. And that's certainly helpful. And I suspect that very soon we'll have an announcement for the former Magnetrol site. Bridge development, of course, project was approved by the council. That's the 50-acre project on the west side of Findlay, Lacey, north of Ogden. And that has also spurred a lot of interest, not only from companies that are potential tenants in those buildings, but there are some other properties around that bridge development that there's a lot of interest from developers for that as well. It's going to really, Dave and I were talking the other day about this, that corridor from Esplanade down to all the way down to Ogden on the west side of that street there's going to be a lot of activity there in the years to come. So a couple of marketing notes. Before I start, I know that everyone here is as happy as I am that Downers Grove was named by Livability.com as one of the top 100 places to live in the United States. We're the only city in Illinois that made the top 50 2 years in a row. And 7 municipalities from Illinois made the survey. And think about how many thousands of cities there are in the state, tens of thousands in the United States. So to finish 43rd and 46th 2 years in a row is quite an accomplishment. And so we're definitely going to incorporate that into our marketing. The list of recognitions that Downers Grove has received for the past few years is quite substantial. Let me talk about, again, some marketing initiatives. We purchased a database at last fall of every commercial broker in the Chicago area. And we're planning on using that for when we're going to trade shows, when we're notifying people about things that we're doing. We're sending out press releases on new projects. Most of these folks attend the International Council of Shopping Center shows that we participate in. So as an example, we attend the deal-making show every year. We exhibit at it. Stan Popovich works the booth with us. We'll send out an invitation, an email invitation to every single one of those brokers, most of whom will be going to that show, ask them to stop by our booth. So it'll be a tremendous tool for us. On the 22nd of March, we're participating in the ICSC Retail Real Estate Forum at the Hyatt in Rosemont. In May is the annual ICSC Recon Show. That's kind of the high watermark for us in terms of meeting with commercial real estate brokers, corporate real estate managers, retailers, restaurants. And as I mentioned, the deal-making show is in October this year. That's the show we have a booth at, and it's always been a pretty cost-effective one for us. And we will be once again holding, this will be our 3rd annual reception for commercial brokers at Alter Brewing, and it will be on October 10th this year at 5 o'clock, so please mark your calendars. You'll receive an invitation obviously long before that. Tomorrow evening, I'll be giving the welcoming remarks at the Main Street Dealmakers Forum at the DoubleTree. This is a regional organization of residential and commercial brokers. Their commercial broker section, which is what this is focused on, is about 3,000 brokers. They're telling me they're going to have over 100 brokers there, which is a record crowd for them. We're the lead sponsor for this event, and we will be, again, I'll be delivering the welcoming remarks at that event tomorrow. Finally, I wanted to mention that one of the things that we spend some time on is being aware of things that are happening in the commercial retail industry, whether it's individual businesses, whether it's trends, who may be opening, who may be closing. We subscribe to a lot of industry literature, if you will. And I want to mention a few things. The trend toward online sales is continuing. Where it sees its greatest impact is at the Christmas holiday shopping season. Deloitte just did a major study about this past holiday season and how dollars were spent. And the number one reason that people tend to spend more money online during the holidays as opposed to the other 11 months of the year is the issue of delivery. That you can purchase an item online and have it delivered that's a present that you're buying for someone directly to them, usually for free. And so the retailers who want sales to increase in their stores are paying attention to that. And I think one of the things you'll see fairly soon is if you walk into a retail store and you buy something there, they normally don't offer to ship it for you anywhere free. That may have to change because that's certainly a convenience that people want. In 2017, the holiday season was the first time ever that there were actually more sales online than there were in stores. Even though retail sales were up nationwide. The other 11 months out of the year, that's not the case. It's still vast majority of sales are in stores. But the trend line in that area is going up. And again, it's touching a lot on delivery and convenience. Also, we pay attention to store openings and store closings. You probably have read that in addition to Sam's Club, Carson's, filed for bankruptcy. Lord & Taylor's closing their Oak Brook store. And the one that's going to hit us, like a lot of other communities, is Toys R Us, is very likely to pull the plug within a week and close every store in the United States. There's some data that I've seen, and the only retail segment that does better online in online sales than toys is books. So for some reason, everyone's buying their toys online. It's about almost 2/3 of all toy sales are now done on the internet. So Toys R Us has felt that.
I'm seeing my childhood flash before my eyes.
Toys R Us actually had an interesting idea that they were going to basically try to give their suppliers who make the toys some equity in the company and turn Toys R Us into a showroom. I think they're too far deep in debt. So in about a week, I think you'll see that confirmed at all the storefronts. And we have 2 in Downers Grove. And I guess the last thing I want to mention is on April 11th at 11:30 a.m. is our annual luncheon at the DoubleTree, and we hope everyone will attend. All the commissioners receive a complimentary ticket, and you will receive your invitation very soon. Thank you, and I would love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Casa, as always, for the detailed presentation on what's going on and what we can expect. Any questions or comments from members of the council on the quarterly report this quarter? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, very good. That brings us to item 5. Lest we forget, we still have item 5, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. At this point in time, if there's any members of the audience that have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda, I would invite you to please come up to the podium and we'd welcome hearing from you. All right, very good. And we will move on to item 6, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Martelli, I move that this council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any items on tonight's consent agenda? Questions or comments from members of the village council with respect to any items on tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to our active agenda tonight, item 7. We have one item on tonight's active agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 1205 Franklin Street in the village of Downers Grove?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for a home at 1205 Franklin Street as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments on this item from any members of the audience? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. I'm Shannon Tully. I am the co-chair of the Friends of the Edwards House. I live at 5413 Main Street. And on behalf of our entire organization, we fully support landmark designation be given to 1205 Franklin Street. It certainly is one of the most beautiful homes in the village and one of my favorites. I want to thank the Hammers for bringing their home and bringing the application forward, and Cindy Zeski for assisting them, as well as the staff for assisting them with the application. And that's it, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Very good. Seeing none further, any questions or comments from members of the village council? I would just want to add, number one, it is always heartwarming to see the continued pipeline of historic properties coming before us for landmarking. I think this is truly what the council envisioned would happen when the ordinance was changed with the help and input from many members of the community. And to see this almost as a regular basis is really terrific, and I think what we want to accomplish. But it can't be accomplished without the people who bring them forward to us. So I also want, on behalf of the council, want to thank Ken and Kay Hammer for taking this step and landmarking the home and making it part of not only our current history but future history for many generations to come. And after the vote, I'm going to ask you to come up and it will be my privilege to present you with the certification for the landmark designation. But let's first vote on it. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously. The Gorman Dome House at 1205 Franklin Street is hereby landmarked. Bring you up on the magic of this voice.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Let me give this to you.
Thanks a lot. We're absolutely delighted to be a part of the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're delighted to have you join the growing portfolio of amazing landmark properties in the village of Downers Grove. That brings us to the end of our active agenda. What a way to end an active agenda. It brings us to item 8, which is our first reading or our workshop agenda. We have no items on our workshop or first reading agenda, so that brings us to item 9, which is the mayor's report. And I just have two quick things. One, I want to remind everyone that this Saturday at 9 o'clock, this Saturday, right? We have coffee with the council from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., which is St. Patrick's Day. So if you want to share in the green a little bit, maybe before you head off to your favorite spot and come by and share any thoughts or comments with members of the village council. Apologies for not looking, but we're at the library again.
Yes, sir.
We'll be at the Downers Grove Public Library from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. on Saturday, St. Patrick's Day, which of course is the 17th of March. So please come down and say hello then. Number two, one of the most important things that we as citizens can do is vote. And I want to remind everybody that early voting is well underway right here at Village Hall in the committee room, and it will continue through March 17th, which is also St. Patrick's Day, just in case anybody forgot that Saturday is St. Patrick's Day. Did I say the Saturday is St. Patrick's Day? Early voting at the Village of Downers Grove in the committee room will continue through Saturday, March 17th. It is the hours, that's what I'm looking for here, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. and Saturday from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. So my only request is that before you go to your favorite Irish place and enjoy a little green beer, maybe vote first before you do that. That would be my only request. But please do remember to vote, and early voting is available, and it's never been easier than before. And last, I just want to also thank one of our own and recognize Marion Heinz, the village's public education manager. Marion Heinz started with the village, I believe April and I figured out it was in 1979. After 39 years of dedicated service, Marion's last day was last week. She has truly been an icon of this organization. My children basically grew up with Marion, and everybody knows her, and she will be sorely missed, but I did not get the chance to tell her in person because of the midday party. It was a little bit difficult to get to, but wanted to make sure that we all recognized and thanked her for her many years of dedicated service. She truly has been an integral part of this organization and the community beyond it. So please give our best to her for a very well-deserved retirement. And that ends my report and brings us to, we already did the manager's report, Mr. Fieldman. We will go right to the attorney's report, which is not on the agenda. Is there an attorney's report, Ms. Petrarca?
There is no report, thank you.
Thank you. I always try to sneak that off, but I'm not going to let that happen. That brings us to item 11, which pertains to village council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with the audience, both here and those watching at home, any items of interest that are going on in the community, or to report out to the rest of the council with respect to anything of material interest from their roles as liaisons with other entities. I'll start with Commissioner Barnett tonight.
I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Earl.
I want to apologize for everyone for hacking my way through this meeting. I am not well, but I felt it was very important to be here for this downtown map vote. We've been working on this a long time, and it was very important to me to be here. However, I will beg your forgiveness at not being with coffee at the council on Saturday while I'm still getting better. So that's all I have to report, Mayor. Thank you.
No worries. There might be some Jameson that could help you with that.
I'll take that.
And thank you for your dedication and public service for being here. It's greatly appreciated, putting your own life at risk. Thank you. Commissioner White.
No report.
Thank you. Commissioner Jose.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Waldeck.
No report, Mayor.
Commissioner Wallace.
Oh, I have a report, I'm so sorry. I broke the string.
The 2018 Mustang Trot 5K Run and Walk is April 8th at 9 a.m. at Downers Grove South High School. It's sponsored by their Key Club. It benefits longevity, and you can visit their website to register, mustangtrot.weebly.com. That is all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I owe them a return email. Yes, I will be attending again this year and running it, which usually makes a lot of other people feel much better about themselves because I'm way in the back and they can say they beat the mayor. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I have nothing further in respect to my report other than to wish everyone a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. Sláinte. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Until I move, council adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?